Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
At least 36 persons killed after gunmen attacked internally displaced persons camp in Benue State. Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom appeals to President Buhari to match words with action by deploying more troops. 36 state chairmen of the Labour Party pass vote of confidence in the leadership of party's national chairman, Julius Abure. On the foreign scene, dozens of schoolgirls poisoned in several schools across Iran in continuation of mysterious phenomenon. Good evening, this is News at 7 on Western Spring Television. My name is Evelyn Ohiola. In a sad development in Benue State, not less than 36 persons have been reported dead after gunmen attacked an internally displaced persons camp in Guma local government area of Benue State. Benue police spokesperson Sewese Anene said the incident happened yesterday night. The incident is the latest in the spate of killings happening in the state. On Wednesday, an unconfirmed number of persons were killed in an attack by gunmen on Umogidi village in Otukpo local government area. In March, it was reported that no fewer than 50 persons were allegedly killed by suspected headers who invaded communities in Gwande local government area of the state. Triggered by the killings, hundreds of youths yesterday mounted roadblocks on the Otukpo-Oweto-Abuja Federal Highway in protests. Vehicular movement was reportedly disrupted for several hours. In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has condemned the recent spate of violent attacks in Benue State. On Wednesday, at least 46 people were killed after gunmen attacked Umogidi community in Otukpo local government area of Benue. In a statement signed by presidential spokesperson Garba Shehu, President Buhari condemned the use of terrorism as a tool to settle intercommunal conflict. The president directed security agencies to enhance surveillance and immediately review the security management in affected areas. He also sympathized with the families of those who have been killed in attacks in parts of the state. The spate of killings in Benue State has attained alarming heights in recent weeks. Meanwhile, Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom has appealed to President Muhammadu Buhari to match words with action by deploying more troops following the killing of 134 people over the last 5 days in Otukpo, Apa, and Guma local government areas. Governor Ortom made the call today during a visit to Ungbam community in Guma local government, where 36 people, including internally displaced persons, were killed by suspected headsmen yesterday night and 40 people injured. In another attack on Monday, 47 people were killed in Ukabi community of Apa local government, including the traditional ruler, who was killed along with his subjects, followed by the killing of another 51 people in Umogidi community of Otukpo local government on Wednesday, leaving rural communities in fear of attacks. With 134 deaths recorded, Governor Ortom expressed displeasure that IDPs and farming communities in the state had become soft targets for suspected headsmen. He lamented the continuous killings, appealing for help from the president. Survivors are, however, receiving treatment at the State University Teaching Hospital in Makadi. In Kaduna State, the governor today lifted the curfew imposed on Sabon Gari Nasarawa Tinkaniya in the Chukun local government area of the state. The state government had on Monday imposed a curfew on the local government following the killing of 2 persons. However, in a statement, Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs in the state, Samuel Aruwan, said the curfew has been removed. He said the military and police will continue to carry out patrols in the locations as residents of the area may now go about their lawful activities. Inspector General of Police Usman Baba has ordered the posting and redeployment of 21 Assistant Inspectors General of Police (AIGs). Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Adejobi said the posting and redeployment are to take immediate effect. He said the development is in line with the IGP's manpower development policy of fitting the right persons into appropriate roles. Mr. Adejobi said the IGP charged all newly posted and redeployed officers to put their best foot forward in ensuring that the activities of their new commands, formations and departments align with the police reform mandate. He also tasked them to ensure compliance with all standard operating procedures in the discharge of their responsibilities. In other news, Nigeria, like other sub-Saharan countries, is experiencing a steady growth in the rate of single mothers. This has resulted in a large number of single-parent mothers catering to families across the country. This report by Joseph Atewa looks at some of the issues leading to this phenomenon.
The increase of single mothers in Nigeria has become something to worry about, considering the ever-growing number, which doesn't seem to reduce anytime soon. Many experts believe that women no longer settle for a man solely for security and stability. This may have been a necessity in the past, but today, women want partnership, emotional support, meaningful conversations, and therefore may not be willing to settle for marriage just because they got pregnant. According to a 2020 cross-sectional survey, 4.2 million women aged 20 to 85 were bereaved, and no less than 3 million women were either divorced or separated from their husbands because the man could no longer provide the basic needs. We spoke to a host of single mothers in Osun State to know why they have decided to raise their kids alone without the help of their father. The response we got were alarming. While some who spoke to us behind the scene left because their husbands were physical on them, some left because their husbands became too controlling and in some cases was willing to get another wife. Barred by her husband's parents, 34-year-old Rukayatu Jo, who has over the years taken care of her 2 kids alone, told us that she went through hell in the hands of her ex-husband's parents, hence she had to leave.
I stayed in the marriage for 5 years. I got married to my ex-husband in 2015 and we were good. But I think our first issue started when we decided to live in a family house. So there was no freedom. And mind you, getting married to a man, marry a man that will stand by you always. Don't marry a mommy's boy. That is the genesis of our problem. And as time goes on, his family saw me as a threat to their son because I'm a very hardworking lady. I work a lot. I love money. So they saw me as a threat and they started one problem, one issue. So we grew from one issue to another. Till date, he didn't say he doesn't want me as a wife, but the father said, you are not good for my son. And that was what led to our separation.
Even though not all single mothers are financially precarious, the majority are and struggle every day to provide for their families. Rukayatu Jo further stated that aside being too demanding, the trauma that comes with being a single mother is not one she prays for her enemy.
Truth be told, I always say this whenever I go for any interview. I used to see most single ladies or single women saying, I can do without a man, I don't even need a man. It is a lie. We feel it. I personally, I do have that feeling because going out every day, walk myself out. At times, I would love to go home and share my experience with someone, not just a friend, but someone I love. But getting to that house, to yourself alone and the kids, most times I cry to my pillow. Yes, and then you feel, I didn't been. I didn't been. So there is no way you won't feel it as a single mother. I won't lie.
Having heard from the long list of single mothers we spoke to, a marriage counselor and a relationship expert, Mrs. Atinuke Olukemi, who has been in the business for decades, explained to us the reason behind the increase of single parenting in Nigeria.
The single mother syndrome is part of the problems we have in the society nowadays. Unlike in the olden days when I got married about 42 years ago, people were ready to stake their neck and work it with the husband until he makes it. But now, the opposite is the order of the day. They want a man who has already made it, who has a car, a job in the oil company, who is 6 feet tall, with all the qualities you can see in a fine young man before they will say I do. And immediately they say I do, and the things they find in the house is no longer adequate, they just zoom off. And that is why you have single mothers and single fathers, because it is single parental.
Outlining ways single parenting can be reduced in the country, the marriage counselor believes both parties must put hands together to make things work and put religion aside.
It's not only contentment. The bad attitude you have mentioned, thank God you have said it is not to women alone, meant to, because if you look at domestic violence, you find out that some of it, women will be, they want to be blamed, and other parts, the man will be to be blamed. And moreover, we have this syndrome of baby mama. They are not ready to just be responsible to anyone. They want an environment that is free of conflicts. They don't want to come home to come and make food for somebody on time. They don't want anybody to hamper them with having to go to clubs and what have you. So they decided to be single mothers by choosing to be a baby mama, not necessarily Mrs. Oluwapojuwomi.
The growing trend is becoming acceptable in the society, especially with many marriages crumbling up and deaths of the breadwinner. For some, they're not married but willfully have children for men they do not live with. We must understand that this ugly practice that is alien to African culture and tradition is gradually finding its way to stay. Everyone is obliged to make their own choices in life, but this choice often comes with consequences that most times constitute negative impact in the lives of the children, according to study. They say it takes two to tango, hence we expect that an end is put to this ugly trend of single parenting. Joseph Atewe, Western Spring Television.
Elsewhere, President-elect Bola Tinubu has admonished Nigerians to shun ethnic and religious strife for the country to attain prosperity faster. The president-elect, in his Easter message to Christians today, called on Nigerians to love their neighbor regardless of tongue, faith, and tribe. In the wake of the 2023 elections, ethnic slurs and divisive comments dominated debate amongst members of different political parties and social media. Commenting on the situation, Senator Tinubu urged Nigerians to recommit themselves to edifying and patriotic pursuits in the interest of the nation. According to the president-elect, Easter symbolizes the triumph of hope over despair, love over hate and condemnation, and optimism over cynicism. Meanwhile, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, has called on Nigerians to avoid instigators who are trying to sow division across ethnic and religious lines in the country. In his Easter message posted on Twitter today, Atiku urged citizens to collectively own their problems and collectively find solutions to overcome them. He called on leaders at all levels to come together to help all Nigerians resolve the differences that divide them. He added that Nigerians must constantly ensure the unity of the country, saying it is the only way they can thrive as a people. Atiku finished second in the presidential election and has filed a petition to challenge the result of the poll. You're watching News at 7 on Western Spring Television. Still to come. Dozens of schoolgirls poisoned in several schools across Iran in continuation of mysterious phenomenon. We'll bring you more on this when we return.
Ahmadu Bello, Prince Royal, was born 6th of December 1910 at Raba Village, Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. His father was a district head and heir apparent to the Sultanate throne from the house of Usmanu Danfodio, a religious and social reformer who brought the Habib dynasty under the Fulani Caliphate in the beginning of the 19th century. Ahmadu Bello raised the bar of political consciousness and participation when, in 1944, he engineered the establishment of the Northern People's Congress (NPC) as the first political party in northern Nigeria and the rallying point for politicians in the region before independence. History will not forget Ahmadu Bello for his charisma and political sagacity, which provided easy passage for his kinsmen to assume political and administrative positions in Nigeria's post-independence era. The distinguished elder statesman and Sardauna of Sokoto has his face on his country's 200 naira currency as a mark of honor to one of the architects of Nigeria's independence. Western Spring Television identifies Ahmadu Bello as a watershed character in history. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist who gave his all for the elimination of what has been described as the world's most vicious rule of the unjust and man's inhumanity against man. He was born July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. Educated and trained as a successful legal practitioner, he took up the gauntlet of a human activist against segregation by the minority white suprematists in South Africa. At the climax of his trial for treason, orchestrated by the minority South African government, the great crusader for democratic equality was prepared to pay the supreme sacrifice to establish majority rule in his native land. He told white jurists that if achieving freedom for his people was worth his life, he was prepared to die. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben Island, described as the most notorious prison in the world. It was from this same prison that he came out as a free man to assume office as South Africa's first black president in 1994. Western Spring Television identifies Nelson Mandela as a watershed character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still News at 7 on Western Spring Television. A reminder of our headlines. At least 36 persons killed after gunmen attacked internally displaced persons camp in Benue State. Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom appeals to President Buhari to match words with action by deploying more troops. 36 state chairmen of the Labour Party passed vote of confidence in the leadership of party's national chairman, Julius Abure. On the foreign scene, dozens of schoolgirls poisoned in several schools across Iran in continuation of mysterious phenomenon. The 36th state chairman of the Labour Party and some members of the party's National Working Committee have passed a vote of confidence in the leadership of the party's national chairman, Julius Abure. Addressing journalists, they said the action of Lamidi Papa and a few individuals is illegal and decisions taken are null and void. Mr. Papa had declared himself as the party's national chair in the wake of a fresh legal crisis rocking the party, whose flag bearer, Peter Obi, is challenging the outcome of the February 25th presidential poll. The 36th state chairman of the party called on Mr. Abure, whom they recognize as the national chairman of the party, to immediately call for a national executive committee meeting. They passed a vote of confidence on Mr. Abure and insisted that Yomi Arabambi and Aslam Eragbe remained suspended from the party. They hailed the decision of the trustees of the party, the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC, and the Trade Union Congress TUC for their decision to stand by Mr. Abure, insisting that due process must be followed for any removal or suspension to take effect. Earlier, Labour Party state chairman and youths recovered the party headquarters in Abuja.
And Julius Abure remain our chairman. It is only a court of competent jurisdiction and also the National Executive Council, which is net that can remove it. And that cannot be done behind closed doors. It has to be done through a national convention. And we are saying Labour Party was in Shambu before. But if you all know this of Labour Party, you can see that Julius Abure has done the best for Labour Party. Labour Party in the last election were able to win about 11 or 12 states. You can see that within how many months? 6 months. Nigeria won Labour Party. So we are not fighting any party, but what we are saying is that we have come to stay. And they should allow us to run our party the way we want to run it. And we want to advise all these elements, all these uncolored personalities that are in our midst that want to negate the will of Nigeria. The case is in court. And we will not allow anybody to distract us. We are focused, we are determined, we are resolute to get our mandate back. Yes! Labour Party! Forward!
Governor Duye Diri of Bayelsa State today directed search and rescue of victims of Thursday's bird mishap, where yet to be ascertained number of victims drowned. The directive to relevant government agencies, including security agencies, is contained in a statement issued by Chief Press Secretary to the Bayelsa Governor, Daniel Amanda. So far, 3 bodies have been recovered at the accident site located at Nembe local government area of the state. The governor sympathized with injured victims and the families that lost persons in the sad incident. It said that the government would review the course of the accident in order to take steps to ensure safety of lives and goods on the state's waterways. On the foreign scene, dozens of schoolgirls were poisoned today in several schools across Iran in continuation of the mysterious phenomenon that has shaken the country for months. Since late November, many schools, mostly for girls, have been affected by sudden poisoning incidents from gases or toxic substances, in some cases causing fainting and hospitalization among the students. State Television's Arab news agency cited a local official as saying that at least 60 students were poisoned in a girls' school in the town of Aftkal, in the oil-rich southwestern province of Khuzestan. According to an official count provided on March 7th, more than 5,000 students have been affected by similar poisonings in more than 230 establishments located in 25 of the country's 31 provinces. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had called for severe sentences up to the death penalty against those found responsible for the poisonings, which he described as unforgivable crimes. The poisoning cases began 2 months after the start of a protest movement in Iran sparked by the death in custody of Mahsa Amini following her arrest for allegedly violating the strict dress code for women. In the United Kingdom, up to 250,000 operations and appointments could be postponed due to next week's junior doctor strike. The NHS Confederation Director of Policy, Dr. Leila McKay, gave the warning, stating that patients are likely to see more of an impact because the 4-day walkout comes after the Easter weekend. She said health bosses are more concerned about the impact of the coming strike than they have been about the others. The walkout is due to start on Tuesday. Hospital bosses have said they cannot guarantee patients will be safe as managers struggle to arrange staffing during the strike, which will affect both emergency and planned care.
Well, our members, who are healthcare leaders across the whole system, tell us that they have never worried about a strike as much as they're worried about this one. They think that the impact could be really, really significant. And that's, as you say, because it is happening, the strike itself, 96 hours, it's longer than they've experienced, and it is attached to the Easter weekend and then, of course, the weekend after that, meaning that they're very much expecting to see this disruption happening over 10, 11 days. And it's at a time when quite a lot of doctors will be on holiday and not necessarily able to provide that cover, that lots of the consultants who provided cover last time will be having time off in lieu. And it is a really concerning time because it's not quite clear how to manage that level of capacity loss over such a long period of time. That's why healthcare leaders are working so hard around the clock to think of mitigations, to make sure there are going to be enough capacity and to absolutely prioritise the most urgent care and patient safety.
Meanwhile, the head of China's Center for Disease Control and Prevention has urged the World Health Organization to return to a scientific, fair position in tracing the origin of COVID-19. Shen Hongbing made this known at a news conference today, warning the health agency to avoid becoming a tool of another country. He further warned the health body against politicizing the source of the virus, which was first detected in central China in late 2019. WHO head Tedros Ghebreyesus had on Thursday pressed China to share its information about the origins of COVID-19, saying until that happens, all scenarios remain on the table. A truck has crashed into pedestrians and motorcycle taxis near western Kenya's border with Tanzania, killing at least 10 people and injuring 10 others. The crash in the town of Migori happened along a major highway when the driver lost control of the vehicle today. According to Migori Police Commander Mark Wanjala, the operation to free the people trapped under the truck was underway, and there are fears the death toll might rise. It disclosed that 2 more people were reported to have been knocked across a bridge and into a river. According to eyewitnesses, the truck driver honked the vehicle's horn repeatedly before the crash.
And they should slow down when approaching major towns, because roads in major towns are normally crowded. They should also ensure that the vehicles they are deploying on our roads are serviceable, and generally ensure that they adhere to the traffic rules and regulations. To also ensure that they don't drink when they know that they'll drive. So instead, they should drink other drinks. And then for passengers, ensure that you fasten your belt and report any reckless driver to the police. And ensure that you also take a lot of caution when crossing the road. As far as security is concerned, in other places, we have beefed out security in estates where we know that some of the occupants may have traveled to their rural areas to enjoy the festive season, and therefore the houses are vacant. In the Middle East, an Italian tourist has been killed and 7 others injured
in a suspected car ramming attack near a beach in Tel Aviv. Italy's Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani said Israeli authorities had identified the man killed as Italian citizen Alessandro Perini, aged 36. According to medics who spoke to local media, the wounded included 3 British nationals and 1 other Italian. Local police said the suspected attacker was shot dead by officers. Still ahead, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations says global food prices declined for the 12th consecutive month in March. We have more on this and other business stories after this break. Please stay with us.
The name Adolf Hitler exudes a gale of bile from millions of people who were victims of his autocratic rule and love, from fanatical supporters of his imperial aggression. Born April 20, 1889, at a small Austrian town sandwiched between Austro-German frontier, Adolf Hitler spent most of his childhood in Linz, the capital of Upper Austria. As a very prominent stakeholder in the horrific events of conflicts in Europe, Adolf Hitler could simply go off as the sole mover of the Second World War. 40 million Jews were murdered in the gas chambers of various Nazi camps on the orders of Adolf Hitler. Thousands of Adolf Hitlers still live in Germany today, but the majority of them are elderly and were named before the end of the Second World War. As the name pales into vanishing rarity, 13 children, according to official records, were named Adolf Hitler between 2006 and 2013. Western Spring Television identifies Adolf Hitler as a major character in history. The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history. Born 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used his political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history.
Welcome back. Now to business. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations says global food prices declined for the 12th consecutive month in March. The UN agency released its latest food price index. The The organization said the index, which tracks international prices of the most globally traded food commodities, averaged 126.9 points last month, down 2.1% from February, as well as 20.5% below its all-time peak in March 2022. FAO said the decline in March 2023 was largely caused by drops in cereal, vegetable oil, and dairy price indices. However, the prices of sugar and meat increased during the period. The World Bank's ongoing reform could result in a $50 billion lending boost over the next decade. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen stated this ahead of stakeholders' meetings next week, where key changes are expected to be announced. Central bankers, finance ministers, and participants from more than 180 member countries are expected to gather in the U.S. Capitol for the International Monetary Fund and World Bank's spring meetings in the coming week. A key topic of discussion will be the World Bank's evolution amidst a push for lenders to revamp and meet global challenges like climate change. Ms. Yellen said there should be an update of the bank's mission to add building resilience against climate change, pandemics, and conflict and fragility to the core goals. She added that there needs to be a recognition that these challenges are not separate or conflicting, but rather inextricably linked. Ukraine is able to export electricity for the first time in 6 months as its energy infrastructure recovers from months of repeated Russian attacks. Russia began its lengthy and deliberate assault on Ukraine's energy infrastructure last October. It led to power cuts and shadowed blackouts, leaving towns and cities in darkness during winter. Ukraine was forced to stop electricity exports but will now be able to sell its excess power again. Energy Minister Roman Alushenko signed an executive order authorizing the exports, although local customers remain the priority. It said the system had been producing extra capacity for almost 2 months and that Ukrainians were not facing restrictions. Welcome to sports. Nigerian striker Josh Maja was on target for Bordeaux, who beat Bastia 2-0 in the French League 2 today. Maja is now taking his tally in the second-tier division to 13 in 30 games. It is a third straight win for Bordeaux, and they are unbeaten in their last 7 fixtures. The win saw Bordeaux on 56 points, 4 behind leaders Le Havre, maintain second place, which is one of the spots for automatic promotion to League One. Bordeaux were reduced to 10 players after Malcolm Mputu was shown a straight red card in the 90th minute. Manchester United strengthened their grip on top 4 place and kept Everton deep in relegation trouble with a one-sided 2-0 victory at Old Trafford. Scott McTominay's well-taken first-half effort and Anthony Martial's first Premier League goal since December were enough to give United victory. However, there was late concern for the hosts when Marcus Rashford was forced to leave the field and was pictured walking very gingerly up the tunnel to the home dressing room. It could prove to be a major blow in the Red Devils' quest for more silverware this season in the FA Cup and Europa League.
Definitely, but maybe we played the 3rd game in 6 days, which is crazy, and then you see a lack of sharpness in the final moment. But I think you have to credit the team when you can deliver this performance at the 3rd game in 6 days. Yeah, it's a big compliment to the team.
Is it too many games? 6 in 3, or 3 in 6 days?
The schedule is not right. That's obvious. You can't play the last Sunday game game in the week, and then the first game on the Saturday, and which is not right. And it's also a risk for injuries. And now we have to wait with Rashford what's going on.
Yeah, it never looks good when a player goes straight down the tunnel. Was it groin for Marcus?
We have to wait what it is and to see how bad it is. So wait for 24 or 36 hours and then we know more.
Which is such a shame because you've got Christian Eriksen finally back on the field today.
Casemiro will be back, Anthony Martial is back, Christian Eriksen is back, so he straight came in, and then it looks like he was never have been away. Straight on, composed on the ball, giving good solutions, giving that belief in the team, because he have the great passing capabilities, so we are really happy.
In the meantime, Frank Lampard made a losing return to the Chelsea hot seat as Wolverhampton Wanderers eased the relegation worries with a hard-earned victory. Chelsea legend Lampard was predictably given a rapturous reception from the travelling fans at Molineux following his appointment as interim head coach 27 months after being sacked from the role. Yet the club's all-time record scorer was unable to stop the poor form that led to Graham Potter's sacking as mid-table Chelsea slammed to an 11th top-flight defeat of the season after failing to score for the third successive game. Wolves were on the front foot throughout and deserved their win, which came after a sweet finish by Matheus Nunes, the Portugal midfielder's first goal for the club since joining from Sporting Lisbon last August. João Felix forced a save from Yosa, but Chelsea were disappointing and remain 11th after just 2 wins in 11 league games.
We have to give some credit to players, but some players here who are, haven't got a history of scoring goals, or maybe are fresh to the league or whatever, new players. You have to give them time and you have to work with them and you have to keep pushing. But at the same time, as a club, we're Chelsea, so we want to score goals, we want to win games, so we have to find a solution to that.
Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang came on as a substitute in the second half. He hasn't had much of a look in recent weeks. How important is it to get him involved again? And as you said yesterday, I think everybody starts afresh.
Yeah, I have to try and use everything because we want to assess the squad quickly and try and find the best players to win games, and to have a good competitive edge and a nature in the squad is a good thing. You don't want players that are just saying it's not for me, I'm not playing or whatever, or don't see an opportunity. They have an opportunity if they train well and play well, so that's a challenge for the players over the weeks to come.
And that's all at this hour, but before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. Not less than 36 persons have been reported dead after gunmen attacked an internally displaced persons camp in Guma local government area of Benue State. Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom has appealed to President Muhammadu Buhari to match words with action by deploying more troops following the killing of 134 people over the last 5 days in Otupo, Upper and Guma local government areas. The 36th state chairman of Labour Party and some members of the party's National Working Committee have passed a vote of confidence in the leadership of the party's national chairman, Julius Abure. On the foreign scene, dozens of schoolgirls were poisoned today in several schools across Iran in continuation of the mysterious phenomenon that has shaken the country for months. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Evelyn Ohiole. Have for yourself a good night rest.